that we are live. We should be live on Facebook. But guys, as you know, I always like to look down and just make sure, because sometimes when you're using these third-party apps and Facebook, they just don't talk to each other. But I see us, Georgia. We're on there. We are
Great
live.
technology working.
It's great when technology works. So we're so happy about that. So thank you for joining us. Because of my personal journey and the complexities of being a nonprofit professional, I'm bringing to you every year, like I do annually, the Mind, Body, and Soul Nonprofit Professionals Self-Care Speaker Series. And today we're focused on work-life balance. So stop rolling your eyes, because I used to roll my eyes when they said work-life balance. I will tell you, Georgia, I told someone about this topic and they said work-life harmony. I was like, oh, that one might resonate a little bit more. So we'll see. But first, as some of you know, my name is Sabrina Walker Hernandez, and I am the admin for this group. And I'm the founder of Supporting World Hope, a nonprofit consulting company. I started after 25 years in the industry. And I started this group and the company to support nonprofit professionals like yourself, because I know what it's like to be overworked, overwhelmed, and stressed out. And I bring this series to you annually or sometimes biannually, because my personal story is, guys, after being in the industry and running my organization for 20 plus years, in 2018, I was diagnosed with not one cancer, but two. And they were both blood cancers, and lifestyle and stress and all of that played a role in it. So I just want to make sure that no one travels down that path that I traveled down. So it's so critical that you take care of yourself. And I'm just excited to share this topic, because I know this is a struggle in our industry. And we have with us today Miss Georgia. Now, Miss Georgia,
Yes.
I should have clarified this. My grandma's name was Georgia. So first of all,
look at
absolutely
that.
love it. Yes, my grandma Georgia. So that's what I think of when I see your name is my grandma Georgia. So that brings warms and fuzzies to my heart. But I did not clarify the correct how to say your last name correctly. So if you could share, Homsany. I
Yes.
thought so, but I always like to check, because I want to make sure I honor your name, because that is your
you.
name, right? So,
Thank you so much.
Miss Georgia, and I was gonna say Miss Georgia regardless, because my grandma Miss Georgia is the
I don't
founder.
mind. I'm in the South, so I
Okay.
like the manners.
Yeah, this is Virginia, North Carolina coming out of me. So she's the founder and the CEO of the Daly Dose Wellness. And she's going to be talking to us about work-life balance. But before we get started, if you can click the heart or the like button, or if you can hear me loud and clear, also let me know where you're watching from, even if you're watching in rebroadcast, because this is going to help us with the Facebook algorithms. Okay. So again, heart, like, any interaction that you could do would really help us as we go throughout this conversation. So as you are coming on, thank you so much. Again, hearts, likes, comments, replay is going to help us. So Miss Georgia, tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, Sabrina, and thank you for sharing part of your story. I can't imagine what it took for you to get to where you are today, but I think it's an important lesson that a lot of what we have in our control with our health can affect our life's journey. So a little bit about my background. I, as most of you, come from a corporate background. So I worked in marketing and brand management for about 15 years, most recently in the beer industry, which is not related to wellness at all, which I think
yes, it is.
People laugh about. I know. Well, I do have an interesting story that kind of ties to that. So I was working, 10 to 12-hour days, living in New York City, commuting almost 3 hours a day. So anyone in a major metro, you might be able to relate to that. And I burnt out. And so I left and I went and traveled abroad for a few months to try and figure out what do I do next. And it was interesting because when I was abroad, I met with an astrologer, and would love to hear from anyone if you're into astrology, numerology. I'll say I'm interested, but I'm, cautious with that. So I'm always curious and wanting to learn all these things. And so this astrologer who I met with in Portugal said to me, "Do you work with people? Do you help people?" And I'm thinking, well, I work in the beer industry, so I guess that could be classified as helping people, but I feel like that's not the way they meant it. And she said, "I see you helping other people and working with others to help them." And I didn't know what that meant at the time. But when I came back, I had to come back because of the pandemic and borders were closing. And so I started applying for marketing jobs again, and it just did not feel right. And I was thinking, I don't want to go back to another 9 to 5 job. And so I was trying to figure out what am I passionate about? And I really had an interest in wellness, but in my head, I was thinking, I don't think the world needs another nutritionist or yoga teacher, because I feel like individually we have so much access to all of these tools. But where I felt there was a need is in the corporate space. So if we think about, we're spending most of our day at work, and wellness is usually something we have to do outside of that, right? So in our free time. So my thought was, why not try to bring my corporate background and pair that with something I'm passionate about, like wellness, and try and help people when they're in the workplace. And so Daly Dose formed last year. And now looking back, I remembered what that astrologer said, and it seems to make sense now.
Wow, that's a journey, I'm telling you, but it is such a needed thing. A lot of nonprofits, like the nonprofit that I worked for as well, we were there like 12-hour days, and we didn't think about wellness to that extent. We were always thinking about our clients and their wellness, but never our employees and their wellness. And then we have some people in our group that are also, they are founders of nonprofits who are still working their full-time job and trying to run this nonprofit too. So where do they make time for wellness, especially if their job is not offering it? So this is such a needed topic. So, one of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, how do you avoid burnout?
Oh, how do you avoid burnout? Okay. So the first thing is, I think, understanding what burnout is.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people assume burnout is just working long hours, but it's not always synonymous to that, just working long hours. So I know that there are people that might have a 9 to 5 job that do feel burnt out, and they're just working the typical 8-hour workday. And the reason being is because what they're putting in is not equal to what they're getting out. And what I mean by that is, you take care of a client or you complete a project for your boss, and if nobody's acknowledging that work, it can leave you feeling like not worthy, or that the work that you are putting in, you're just not getting that acknowledgement and that reward on the flip side. The total opposite of that, let's say that there's someone that works 12-hour days. They might not be experiencing burnout because they're getting a lot out of what they're putting in. They feel great about what they're doing. Think about an entrepreneur as an example. They may love what they're doing. They may get complete satisfaction out of that, and they may want to put in those hours and they're not feeling burnout. So I think just understanding that how we define burnout is what you're putting in. If it's not matching what you're getting out from satisfaction, acknowledgement, then that could start to be where you are experiencing burnout.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So how we can avoid that, one thing I love to encourage people to do is to take breaks. So to go back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of our wellness breaks might need to happen in our free time. But if you're spending even just 8 hours a day working and you're working through lunch, you're probably going to burn out because you're not giving yourself the time needed to pause and regroup. So the first thing I always tell people to do is schedule breaks throughout the day. Even if that's a 10-minute break to eat lunch, but without having your phone next to you, without checking work email. Going outside is another great thing because it really just helps clear our mind when we're able to get outside into nature. We're moving our bodies, and then that'll allow us to come back to work and better concentrate. Another thing I tell people to do to avoid burnout is to reward yourself. So I think we're working, but we're not always rewarding ourselves for the time that we're putting in.
Okay. So take your vacation day.
Vacation days, but okay, so I would say a vacation is a big reward, right?
Okay.
But I think even thinking about little rewards. So for example, I had a business coach and I was explaining to her, on my 1-year anniversary of the business, I took myself out for champagne and oysters. Thinking about
Okay.
And she said, you need to take yourself out for oysters more often, not just once a year, but use it to motivate yourself. Because a lot of times we're in control of ourselves. So it's not only our managers that are telling us what to do, but a lot of this work-life balance can be within our own control. So schedule rewards and breaks for yourself. So maybe it's getting a manicure every month because you completed a certain task, or watching your favorite show at the end of the day, things like that. Okay. So it can be smaller rewards like that. Okay. Vacation would be a bigger one. And yes, you definitely be taking them.
And you see where I was at. I was like, oh, vacation, because I never took vacation, which is not good, right?
Well, and what I love to see is when people take vacation, okay, there's 2 types of out of office I've seen. One is, I am using this time to rest and recharge, and I will get back to you once I come back from the mountains or back from the beach. I love seeing those away messages.
Okay.
There's the other out of office that says, I'm currently on vacation. I will be checking email periodically and we'll get back to you soon.
You're not on vacation.
We really need to unwind, turn off the phones, turn off the computers to really take advantage of those vacations. And
Okay. So Tina says, and I think you can see actually Tina's in chat there. She says, yes, little breaks so important. Hard to take them when you're being productive. So I will tell you this, Georgia. I get into these workflows that I don't want to stop. And I can literally sit there for 8 hours, not go to the restroom, not take a break. So how do you, and I know we're off track. I took the questions kind of out of order, but how do you break those habits?
So I understand getting into the flow. And a lot of times we don't want to break that. If it's 8 hours, I do think you need to take a break to go to the restroom and eat and do all the necessary things. But I am all for getting into the groove. And I think one thing that helps us get into the groove is when we aren't multitasking and we're focusing on one thing. So I am a total proponent, Tina, of getting into the groove. One thing I try to encourage people to do that I think will help you get into the groove and feel okay being in that groove at that given time is to set boundaries. So I know a lot of people, they're on their phone all day long looking at email, and it's blurred the lines of work time, lifetime, personal time. So I think if we can get into the habit of setting a boundary and there is a clear start to the workday and a clear end to the workday, if it's within that time frame and you're in a groove, go with it. But just know that there is also a misconception around taking breaks as now it's going to take me longer to do a job. But when we take breaks, it allows our minds to rest. That way we can come back, and it actually has been shown to improve concentration and lower stress and improve creativity. So even though it feels unnatural perhaps to break and actually give ourselves, even 15 minutes away from the computer, when we come back, it will help recharge us.
Okay. Okay. So let's get back to the one of the questions. So we got so what is work-life balance?
Okay. So how I classify work-life balance is designated time to perform your job and your personal duties without overwhelm. So I'll say that again. There's time to do work and there's time to do personal life, and you're able to do both without this feeling of overwhelm. Now, and that's where the balance comes in. So setting boundaries and doing things like that should help us feel like there's a designated time to do work. And that doesn't mean waking up in the morning and checking email from bed, but maybe waiting till we're at the computer. And then at night, after we're checking out for the day, we have our personal time. And if we feel good about the balance of that and we're not feeling stressed or overwhelmed, that's what I constitute work-life balance. Now, I do want to caveat, you're not going to feel this way every day, most likely. And I think it's important to understand that and know that we're not going to be in the state of balance every day, all day. And I think it's really important to note that, because one of the myths I think there is about work-life balance is that you either have it or you don't. And I don't agree with that. I think every day you have the opportunity to be in balance, and every day you're not going to be in balance. And just knowing that as long as most of the days of the week you feel that balance and you're not feeling that sense of stress and overwhelm, then you're in a good state. Okay. So really just giving yourself that grace that you're going to have those days where you don't feel in balance, and that's okay, but it shouldn't be every day.
Okay. Okay. So what are some of the other common myths about work-life balance?
Another one is feeling like it's not in our control. And I would love to hear from the audience if you want to put in the comments, do you think that work-life balance is in your control? That is my first question to the group. Okay. And whether you think it's in your control or you don't think it's in your control, what factors do you think contribute to this? So what's really impacting whether or not we have work-life balance?
As they prepare their answers, if they respond, I know logically that it's in my control, but it is very hard. I guess going back to what Tina says, she says, yes, it's hard to get into those zones. So when I do, I don't want to move. And that's kind of where I'm at. I know it's in my control. So like this week, let's say this new year, you do your resolutions, and I try not to do a resolution, but I try to say, okay, this is how I'm going to be better. It's been killing me this week. I'm just going to say it. So I say, okay,
you're recognizing it. Yeah. You're recognizing how you're feeling.
Yes. So I say, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do my yoga stretches. I'm going to do, my stretches, my little exercise. Then I'll come to my computer and get work done. But I am going to close down this computer at 5:00, and I'm going to go downstairs. I'm leaving the office. I'm going home, and that's it. When I'm down there at 5:00, I'm thinking about all the things I could be getting done on my computer. That's my issue. And I'm going to see if anybody else has put anything. No one else has put anything. I think that's a loaded question right there. So.
So let me ask you, Sabrina, what time do you typically turn off work?
I typically turn off work before this week. I could be working up until 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what I see as what's
Okay.
going on.
Okay.
If you normally work until 9 p.m. and now you're giving yourself this new goal to turn off at 5,
Mm-hmm.
that is not a minor change.
Okay.
That is a big adjustment.
Okay.
So I'm glad you brought up resolutions because I wanted to touch on this. And this is right in line with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Where we struggle as humans, and a lot of people drop these resolutions, is because we want to go from 0 to 100 to make a change. And it's very difficult to do. And that's why a lot of people drop the resolutions. So for another example, instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, do you know how hard it is to lose 20 pounds? That is not easy. Yet people come into the new year thinking, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, how are you going to lose 20 pounds? Because that is a major life shift.
Mm-hmm.
So think about, instead of saying, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, maybe saying, I would like to go for a 10-minute walk each day. So I was listening to this podcast and I loved this line that the guest speaker said. She said, in order to make a change that's realistic, your brain has to register it as insignificant.
Oh.
So it has to be something that you can do daily that you feel like, oh, that's too easy. I should be able to do that, no problem.
Okay.
So almost think of it as micro changes. So
Okay.
instead of just jumping to, I want to lose 20 pounds, if you said, I want to eat one more vegetable a day, or go for a 5-minute walk a day, something that you're not doing, but that would get you one step closer or half a step closer. And then over time, as you start to adopt that new habit, then you can add on to it.
Okay. Okay.
But what we're not doing is we're just jumping. So
Okay.
if I were in your shoes, instead of saying I want to turn off the computer at 5 p.m., that's a 4-hour window that you feel like you're missing work now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's 8:30 p.m. for you.
Okay.
And then maybe the next week it's 8 p.m. until you get to a place that's good. And 5 o'clock may not be where you land. You might be in your productive zone from 5 to 8. So let yourself have that. But then maybe your mornings you spend taking for yourself.
Got it. Got it. And Tina says, I think sometimes we have control of it, but once things get piled up, it feels like I lose control because then I am behind and trying to play catch up. And that's when I lack control. I have this get it done at any cost because if I take care of myself, I feel as if I can be judged. A lot is more work environment.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So I would love to dive into what Tina said. Okay, one thing that comes to mind is, and correct me if I'm wrong, she is feeling like she will be judged.
Yes.
Was that part of that? Okay. So a lot of times we project what we think other people are thinking about us. We have to protect ourselves, protect our well-being. And in order to do that, we need to try and turn off what the external factors are. Okay? Because a lot of times we'll say, oh, my boss probably thinks I'm lazy or not getting enough done. Unless your boss comes to you and tells you that, let's put that aside because that might be a total misconception. It may not be reality. And a lot of times it's some of our subconscious bias coming up and chirping in our ear, and it's not reality. So if we can try to just focus internally, that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing is treating each day as its own day, and tomorrow we're starting over again. So instead of letting things pile up, let's just take each day as its own day. So to go back to what I was saying earlier about work-life balance, every day you're not going to feel imbalanced. But if you felt like maybe you didn't get enough work done today, let's leave it in today. And tomorrow we wake up and we start fresh. That way we're not letting it compile. Because when we do that, the stress starts to build up and it puts us into this chronic state of stress. And it's very hard to start to undo that.
Okay.
So if we're able to just check in with yourself each day, treat each day as its own instead of letting it compile, because that's where you're going to start to get yourself into trouble.
Okay.
And I'd love to use that example just to kind of, if you wouldn't mind, Sabrina, if we could pause, and I want to talk about stress for a minute.
Okay.
And how things work, because I think this ties into what Tina's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so people look at stress as bad. You never want to have stress. You know, we want to avoid stress. And the reality is that the way that we are built as humans, we are equipped to deal with stress. So acknowledging that and allowing ourselves to be stressed out sometimes, that's just part of being human. So first off, just understand that and allow yourself the grace. If you're having a stressful day, it's a stressful day, okay? And just leave it in today. You don't need to bring it with you tomorrow. Now, back dating to the caveman days, and this is why I say that we're equipped to deal with stress. Anytime there was a threat, you would deal with it, and this is where fight or flight mode comes into play. You would deal with it, and then it would be gone. So you would handle the stressful situation and then move back into this calm state, which we call the parasympathetic state. So we want to be in that parasympathetic state most of the day and most of the week, but we're not always going to be there. And so what happened with the pandemic is that there was a lot of unknown. And so it put people into this chronic state of stress that was long-term and compiling, because we weren't able to predict what was going to happen. Even now, 2 years later, we don't know what next month is going to look like, what 6 months are going to look like. And so all this stress is just building because there's no reprieve. So the last thing we need is to be giving ourselves more stress. So if you're able to treat each day as its own and just check in with how you're feeling, then that will hopefully allow you to kind of keep today's stress with today and be able to turn over a new leaf tomorrow.
And so I think Tina's comments are and I'm going to read them on the way I'm interpreting them is she says, I feel like work environment is hard until it's done. Work with no time off. And so that's her work environment that she comes from. And then you spoke and she says fair, but I think people who work with no breaks are the ones that get praised. You don't see the person who takes care of themselves being pat on the back. It's always like, wow, look at Sabrina working late on the weekends. So that's, I understand that too. So
yeah,
how would you speak to that?
I hate to say it, but that might be a cultural issue where you're working.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I try to promote companies that we work with to do is the change has to come from senior leadership. So if your manager is working 24/7, that's what you think is expected of you. The good managers will encourage you to take those breaks and your vacation time, and they'll yell at you if you're checking email after hours. So if it's a reality, and once again, do we know for certain that these people are getting praised for working long hours, or are we just thinking that? So first, understanding what is really going on. And if you feel like you are being penalized for not working long hours or taking breaks, then I think that needs to be a conversation with your manager. And it may be time to look and explore a company that does promote well-being. Because to me, it sounds like that might be a company that doesn't promote your health. And I mean, the smart companies understand that everything is tied to the bottom line, because there's so many people that are out of work for mental health these days. Pain from being at the computer because they're hunched like this for 12 hours. So then they're having to go to the chiropractor and they might need to take time off. So the companies that get it know that prioritizing employee well-being is helping them with productivity, healthcare costs, retention. We're all talking about how hard it is to recruit and retain talent. Well, that's one of the reasons people are jumping ship, because they feel like they're not being recognized for their work. They're being piled on, expected to do 2 people's jobs, 3 people's jobs. And it's up to you to take care of yourself and know when it's time to maybe start looking at other options if
Yeah.
you don't feel like there's a cultural fit.
Yeah, and I will say this, having run my organization for the time that I did, was I a workaholic? Yes, I was. I'm not going to lie. Was that the culture that I expected around me? Yes, because that's the way I was. But I will say this, when I had staff people come to me and say, hey, after 5 or after this time, this is my family time, then can you honor that? Or they laid their boundaries with me. I respected them more for doing that than not doing that. And what I respected even more was if you could get the work that you were assigned to you done within that 8-hour period or 5-hour, whatever period, then go, by all means, you can leave. You can do whatever it is you need to do. I'm going to say this from a leadership perspective. What I did not appreciate was someone who did not get their work performed and still left early. That me, I'm just being like honest from
Right.
that point of view, so that it's okay to have those conversations with your leadership. It's okay to say, you know what, after this time of night, I won't respond to text. That's my family time. Or, but get the tasks done that you have been assigned to you.
Right.
Unless you are doing 3-4 people's job and it's just unrealistic, then you have to have that conversation too. So
Exactly. And I think, listen, companies, most of them are out to make a profit. I know we're speaking in the nonprofit world, but most companies in the US are understaffed. So they're going to give you as much work until you say otherwise. And we need to do a better job of advocating for ourselves and speaking up, because we think our bosses know that we're struggling, but until we have that conversation and start to set those boundaries to say, I need to take care of myself. So at 6 o'clock, I'm going to have my personal time or my family time. I will get done what I can. And I will sit with you, and you can help me prioritize and let me know what needs to get done this week. And anything that can't get done that week, hopefully that manager will start to say, okay, we need to hire someone else. And I do agree with you, Sabrina, they're going to start to respect that you're setting boundaries and going to them to manage yourself better.
Yeah. So I encourage you, Tina, to do that if you haven't done that as well. So this is such a joy conversation. So I know we talked about this, but I just want to make sure that we capitalize it. So what are the benefits of work-life balance?
I think feeling in control. Who doesn't want to feel in control? And like I said, I think sometimes people could think, oh, I either have it or I don't. But really taking ownership over, you have the ability to be in balance most days. But that requires you setting those boundaries and putting something into place to become a routine. But once you start to do that, it's going to allow you to feel in control over your day. And that's going to give you a sense of empowerment and start to help you feel better that you're in control of making those decisions. So 2 things I want to give people to help guide them in doing that, because you could be sitting there saying, that sounds great, Georgia, but where do I start? How do I begin? So at Daly Dose, we do these 21-day challenges. And the reason why they're 21 days is because it takes 21 days to form a new habit. So anything that you want to start doing, my first rule of thumb would be to do it for at least 21 days consecutively. 30 days, even better, but at least 21 days. So let's say it's, Sabrina, turning off at 8:30 p.m. Let's say you just want to, scale back a little bit more time. So at 8:30 p.m., set a calendar reminder and do that for 21 days. And then it'll become second nature to you, and then you could adopt the second habit. The second part of that is what we talked about earlier, is making it something that's small enough that you feel it's achievable, because you're going to be doing it for at least 21 days. So maybe it's going to bed a half hour earlier. Maybe it's taking the first 30 minutes of the day not to look at your phone. So how many people are waking up, and I do this too, and people are like, but you're a wellness coach. You should know not to do this. I'm human too. I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I could spend up to an hour scrolling through my phone first thing I wake up in the morning. Now, if you're looking at the news, social media, work email before you've even left your bed, chances are you might not be starting that day on the right foot in a positive state of mind. But saying to someone, okay, don't check social media all day, it's not realistic. So think about what's a minor change that you can do that feels okay, because the other piece of this is we're not going to do what we don't want to do, right? So you have to actually want to do it. If you don't want to eat carbs, or if you want to eat carbs and you're telling yourself not to eat carbs, you're going to eat carbs because you don't really want to completely give up carbs. Okay, so maybe it's trying to work in these changes that feel small enough that your brain registers it as insignificant, and do it for 21 days and plug in those calendar appointments to remind yourself to do it habitually.
That is awesome. Andrea, thank you for being here, and Tina and a couple of others here. If you're here and you want me to acknowledge you, make a comment. So we are talking today with Georgia, and she is talking to us about work-life balance. So I'm going to recap what I have learned. What some takeaways for me is one, when you are setting change, make sure they're so insignificant that your brain does not register. That way you can be more successful at it. And then do something for 21 days, because then that can help form a habit. Now, can you give me one more tip that can make this journey a little bit easier for us type A folk that probably are in this group?
Sure. Well, for the type A, I don't know how this is going to feel. It might sound weird, but I encourage you to talk to yourself.
Okay.
And you're probably thinking, what did she just say? Yes, talk to yourself. Having awareness is going to be the first key in anything we do, to just see where we're at. Okay, so check in with yourself, have those conversations. And another tip is to identify it, whatever we're feeling, whatever we're doing, but try to make it neutral. So, for example, a lot of times we have this negative self-talk, which is going to put us in a bad headspace, and that just could, totally off-rail our entire day. So I've heard a lot of my friends say lately, oh, I'm so lazy. Okay, I didn't go to the gym, I'm so lazy. Oh, I didn't work a full day, I'm so lazy. And it drives me crazy, because we need time to recharge. And you might have a day where you don't feel like going to the gym, and that doesn't make you lazy. That just makes you needing more rest. And that sounds a lot better than I'm lazy. So for people, it might be hard for you to say, oh, I'm taking a rest day, instead of saying I'm lazy. But maybe just saying something neutral, like today I'm just going to be. And it's going to feel weird. I know there's some people that are probably like, what is she talking about? It does feel weird, but it's just going back to what we said before. For the brain to go from here to here, there needs to be something in the middle. Okay, so really trying to check in with ourselves, talk to yourself, whether it's out loud or internally, and think, how am I feeling today? Okay, I'm feeling stressed. Without having to say, oh, I'm so mad that I'm having a stressful day. Just say, I'm feeling stressed. Okay, now we can move on.
Okay.
And just talking to yourself, acknowledging it, recognizing those feelings. And what I do is I try to keep track. And if you're seeing every day you're feeling stressed, okay, it's time for a change. But if you look back on the week and you said, I was only stressed once or twice, understanding stress is part of our day to day, you can just accept that, okay, I'm where I should be because I know every day is not going to feel great. Does that help?
That does help. And let me see if there's that helps. So what are some practical tools that can be used when you're seeking work-life balance?
It's a lot of what we talked about. So I encourage people to set reminders. So use your phones, use your calendars, plug in those rewards, plug in those check-ins, and do it as you would a regular meeting. So at 5 p.m., have a calendar appointment that pops up that says, how did today go? And just reflect on it. This is what made me feel bad. This is what made me feel good. And then once we have that awareness, we can start to build off of it. Okay, this made me feel good. Let me try and do more of that. Maybe it was going for that 10-minute walk. And then you start to do that regularly. So being able to have that reflection, and as far as tools, that's simple. That's just plugging the reminders in and giving yourself those aids to have those check-in points.
That's a great idea because I don't think I plug in breaks on my calendar, and I could plug in a break or use this Alexa. That's I said her name. She might say something
Yes,
that's right next to
yes.
me.
Tell
So,
Alexa to remind you.
yeah, I could do that. That's a really good. I would use it for everything else, but we don't use it for work-life balance or self-care.
Right.
And
Well,
that's a
and
good.
also whatever visual prompts would help you. So if it is going for a walk, maybe put your sneakers by the front door before you go to bed. And then you wake up and you see them and you think, I would like to get out for a walk today at some point. And you have those sneakers that are staring at you all day saying, put me on so you can take a break during the workday. So
Okay.
anything that would help you visually, put it in your line of vision. And another tip we do is have your cell phone away from your computer. Because at the very least, if you have to get up to walk over to get your phone at some point during the day, it's a micro break, right? We have to get up, we have to walk somewhere. We're not being distracted by the phone. So keep your phone in another room or across the room so you have to actually get up and get it.
I'm laughing, Georgia, because I'm like, I put that phone away from me. I forget about that phone all day, and people be calling me, and I won't have any
Yeah.
idea.
Well,
I've
and
done
I
that
think
one before.
too, it's such a distraction, right? Because if we think about social media, I don't know if a lot of people on here are just always on social media, but I encourage people, it's okay to be on social media, but schedule time for that because that's a time suck. So if you're, working on a project and then you're thinking, oh, let me scroll and see what people are doing on here, it's just a distraction. And I don't even think people realize how many times a day they're checking
Yeah.
social media. So have that phone in another room, and that could be part of your reward. So we talked earlier about scheduling rewards. Your reward time might be scrolling social media. If you find joy in that, schedule it for after the workday or for your lunch break, if that's how you want to spend it. Just separate the two. That way it's not interfering with your quality work time because that's going to throw the balance off that we talked about.
That makes perfect sense. I think one of the things that I had to do for myself was at night to make myself go to bed at 10 p.m. This is another goal, but I'm learning from you, so I might adjust. But I put my phone in my living room. I don't even put it in my bedroom. So if I want to get on my phone, I have to get up. I have to walk all the way to the living room, and I'm just not going to do it. So it stays there, which prevents me from strolling first thing in the morning or checking emails first thing in the morning. And it also prevents me from strolling on TikTok till 3 o'clock in the morning, which
Yep.
I had found myself doing till
I
three
know.
o'clock. People are so
I know.
creative, and that social media, I was just scrolling.
Same. And it's
So
tempting when it's next to your bed. So I give you a lot of credit
yeah.
putting it in the other room. That's a great tip.
Yep. So I know you've already kind of talked about how to start implementing change around work-life balance, you doing little, things at a time. Is there anything else you'd like to share around that?
I mean, I think we've given people a lot to
Yeah.
reflect on, think
Hmm.
about. And I would love to hear from the audience if there are certain things that resonated more with you, because here's the last thing I'll say. Everything is not going to resonate with you, and that's okay. So there might have been some things in our chat today that you were thinking, yes, great idea, I would love to do that, and other things that you're thinking that no, that wouldn't work for me, and that's okay. Not everything is going to work for everybody.
Hmm.
So I think just being able to pull out one or two things, and not only our talk, but anytime you're listening to a podcast or a webinar and they're saying things, just pull out what's going to resonate with you. We're not, we're only the masters of ourselves. So what works for me may not work for Sabrina, it may not work for Tina, but we try to share because maybe something that's working for me will work for you and it's something that you haven't thought of. So that would be kind of my closing remark, is to just, I'd love to hear from whoever's listening in
Yeah.
what's resonating with you, and maybe some people joined us late and they would like to hear from others
Yeah.
what sat with them well. So
Tina said she definitely liked the idea of trying to schedule breaks. I have done this in the past and she got off track. And it was a reminder that not every day has to be 110%.
yes,
So
yes, and
that's great.
yeah, and
Myself
think
too.
about the breaks as being micro breaks. So maybe it doesn't feel right to you to schedule 30-minute breaks during the day, but maybe they're 10-minute breaks. Maybe you have a couple 10-minute breaks throughout the day, and it could be as simple as having your phone in the other room and you have to walk to the room and you allow yourself a social media break. That could still count as a break, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel like it because it's something you want to be doing.
Yeah. And Andrea says very much a distraction. Social media for her is very much a distraction. I think it is for all of us. I tell people all the time, I'm a social media stalker. Man, I can go and scroll and look at your page and find out about you, but that's what it's time consuming, just like you said.
It
So
is.
yeah.
And
So for those people, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, Georgia.
okay. I was just going to say, one thing that I do, I don't know how this will feel for people, is I do social media detoxes every so often. So it was interesting, Sabrina, when you were, when we were coordinating for this and you were telling me when you were promoting it, I was thinking, I'm right in the middle of my social media detox. How am I going to let people know we're doing this? But even if it's one channel, so for example, I use LinkedIn a lot for work, but Instagram's pretty much just personal for me. So I do detoxes, usually a week or two, sometimes up to 4 weeks, where I just log out. You could either log out or deactivate it, and you can come back to it whenever you want, but it's so freeing. So if you've never tried a social media detox, or even just maybe, Sabrina, maybe it's TikTok for you.
Yeah,
Think
maybe it's
about how
TikTok.
much time, how many times a day we're checking social. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's not doing us well because we're comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
and it's not really reality. There's so
Mhm.
many people I see that look like they have a great marriage, and then you hear about them getting divorced, or and people say all the time it's not reality, but yet that's what we're looking at and comparing our
Mhm.
own lives and accomplishments to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I encourage everyone, detox, even if it's just for a week. The first few days are the hardest because you're like, what am I going to look at if I'm not, automatically scrolling? But
Strolling and looking, and yeah, I
it
don't think I've
feels,
ever done a social media detox. Like even going through treatments and stuff, like I was still strolling on social media. So
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know,
It's
that was a,
so freeing. It
yeah,
feels
that was a
great after
stretch
the
for
first
me.
few days. You get past the discomfort. I'm like, this is great. And people are like, did you see so and so put? I'm like, nope. And I don't care and I don't want to know.
That's pretty good. I don't know how I would get my news though, because I don't watch the news.
Well, maybe pick one platform that you want to stay on for that
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, that would be that. So for those hardcore skeptics rolling their eyes, because I'm telling you, I would have been one at a time ago. What do you say to them?
It's what I said about just knowing that not everything is going to resonate,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. And you might walk away from here thinking, oh, I don't know if I could do any of those things. And then maybe tomorrow you just start to do one of that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it takes us a bit of time to adjust and figure out what works. You might put something into action that doesn't feel right, or you might put something into action that is a lot easier than you thought, and then that becomes a new habit that you have long term. So just really trying to understand that every person is going to have different things that resonate with them, and just don't feel like you have to do everything. Just take what feels right and do those check-ins like I mentioned, to say, how is this making me feel? And if it doesn't feel great, then maybe you shed that. My motto for 2022 is shed it and forget it. Let's leave in the past what's not working for us. And then you adopt a new wellness habit until you find what works for you.
That's really, really good. So I'm going to see if there's any questions out there. If you have any
Sure.
questions, put them in the chat. If we don't have any questions, that's okay. I know one of the questions I often get is around fundraising. And so if you do have any questions around fundraising, guys, yes, that is something that I can help with. You can go to my website at supportingworldhope.com and check out my services that I'm going to be revamping, because I'm going to take Georgia's advice and I'm going to make some changes so that I can have a more work-life balance. But as we go through this, I want to thank you, Georgia. Give people
Thank
time to type
you.
if they have any questions. I want to thank you for being here. And can you let us know how people can get in contact with you if they had any
Sure.
further questions?
Sure. So our company is Daly Dose, so you can always go to our website to see the types of services we do, but we work with small to mid-sized businesses to provide wellness breaks for their employees during the day. So I'd love to work with anyone who thinks their company could use something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find us at dalydose-wellness.com. And you are also welcome to email me directly at georgia@dalydose-wellness.com.
Yes, and I do not expect you to remember that. I am going to be dropping it in the comments, guys. So don't worry about that. I encourage you, if you are running your nonprofit, and you are where you have the staff, and you have you know you need to take care of them, and you need to start changing the culture of your organization. I will say that, coming from a type A workaholic person, I understood and understand that you need to have a culture change. And if you are one of the founders, and you are working for a company, bring this conversation up to them. As Tina said, and Tina said that, thanks for this webinar. I love all the self-care talk. So that's what she wanted to make sure that she shared with you. But to have those conversations with your supervisors and your leadership. Trust me, if you go to them in a respectful way and share this, especially in Georgia, you can piggyback on this, especially in this time period when we've been going through COVID and the stress. They should have a better understanding of what's happening in the world.
Right.
So if you have anything other thing to close us out on that
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it can be difficult to convince leadership to invest in programs like this. If anyone needs resources, like we have an infographic with a lot of statistics on how it actually impacts businesses financially and how it can impact the bottom line, feel free to email me, and I am happy to share that infographic and help you have those conversations with leadership so that they can get you the resources that you need.
Yes, it's very important. So that is our time, and I will leave you with this. Your mission matters and deserves to be highlighted in your community. Your mission matters and can be an inspiration to those who need it the most. Your mission matters and deserves to be funded to its fullest capacity. Again, thank you for joining us. And next Tuesday, when we do our self care talk, we're going to be having with us Nell Edgerton, and she's the president of Social Philosophy, and she's going to be discussing mindset. So, yay, these all piggyback
They
with each
do. They're
other.
so intermingled, and that helps with a lot of what we discussed today. So
Yep.
thank you so much, Sabrina, and thank you all of you for having me. It was so lovely to be part of this group, and hopefully you were able to have some takeaways from today's session.
Bye bye, guys. See ya. See ya. See you later. Bye
Bye.
bye.